So, good afternoon, everyone. Looks like we do have a quorum to start our meeting. It's 12 p.m., but to verify, Kelly, if you could do a roll call to ensure we have a quorum to start the IDA meeting.
Yep, let me find my roll call. Ms. Bassett?
Here.
Mr. Brusso?
Here.
Mr. Trout?
Here.
Mrs. Tulicelli?
I'm here.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Wadhams? Mr. Shipley? Mr. Keim? Okay, so did I get everybody? I think I did.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so Mr. Keim and Mr. Shipley and Mr. Wadhams have not joined yet, but I did get an email that Steve Wadhams is about to call in, so.
Okay. Well, we can start. First item on the agenda is the approval of the IDA minutes from July 2nd. Unless anyone has any questions or comments, can I have a
Valerie
motion
here.
to approve?
Valerie here first. I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
If I could. On page 2 of the minutes, under the Disaster Emergency Loan Program, and the second paragraph that starts with discussion, the line that says potential negative impact this could have on the agency, I'd like to expand that a little bit to say that the negative impact would be on the agency's operating funds or operations. I guess operating funds I'd rather see in there than just on the agency.
The concern was
Any comments on that? I don't know. I just want, it didn't seem right to me to say it like that. That's why I asterisked it.
because the concern was that if the IDA's operating funds were used to fund a loan program, that could have a negative impact on the finances for the IDA.
Okay.
If I could just interject, I think when this all rolls out, the funding will come from the loan fund, not the operating fund. If we want.
Yeah, we know that now. But at the time,
At
we
the
were
time,
talking
I
about.
understand that was not clear at the time. Is that correct? No.
Okay. And just below that, it says Economic Development Association. It's actually the Economic Development Administration.
Right.
So any other comments or adjustments to the minutes?
One other.
Okay.
On page 3, under Hillside Update, the last line, the board would bring its recommendation to the board on August 6th board meeting, not August 2nd.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Definitely, yeah, you're a thorough reader of the minutes and the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting around here, so that's what I do.
Yeah, definitely appreciated.
That's all I have.
Yes, I see Steve Wadhams has joined the meeting.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm a little late getting in here.
So we're just in the beginning. So with those adjustments made to the meeting minutes, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Valerie.
So yes, Kelly?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Brusso? Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mrs. Policelli,
Yes.
Mr. Trout,
Yes.
Mr. Keim, and Mr. Shipley absent, motion carried.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the June 2020 financial statements. So if we can start with Erica, if you could review the financial statements.
Sure. So on the balance sheet, cash is up $52,613. That's due to a Del Lago payment that was made. Long-term notes receivable are decreased by $6,386, and that is also due to payments received. Fixed assets are decreased by $4,800. That's depreciation. And net income it is $41,835 for the month. We are at a $23,000 surplus year to date. On the income statement, income of $103.5 thousand for the month of June. That's Del Lago. On the expenses side, expenses through June were up $17,000 from the prior year. Approximately $265,000 in expenses for the year to date, and the three largest expenses for the period were payroll of $62,000, professional of $95,000, and benefits of $35,000. Other income, there's $150,000 from, well, Seneca County was $54,000, and the sale of the property was $85,000. And then other expenses, there's $14,000 in site development costs.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments for Erica? I think what we can do is next, I think what Bob prepared a semi-annual review of the budget versus actual, or actual versus budget.
All right. Eric has already mentioned a number of items that affected the performance through the end of June. In the overall, our total income was $153,200 compared to a budget of $150,500, which is close to our budget for that time frame of, again, 6 months. Total expenses were $265,819 compared to $283,149, a variance of about $17,000 in that category. Net ordinary income was a minus $112,619 compared to a minus $132,649 on the budget basis. In this case, an improvement of $20,000 in that category. Total other income was $150,433 compared to a budget of $150,594, slight variance of $161. Total other expense was $14,414 compared to a budget of $850. In this case, a negative variance of $13,564. Total income to expense on a net basis in other categories is $136,019 compared to $149,744. And in this case, a variance of $13,725. Bottom line, for the first 6 months of operation, our total income was $23,400 compared to a budget for 6 months of $17,095. Variance, the plus by variance of $6,300. In my analysis, I indicated about 15 items that made up those differences. I won't go through those individually, but they are included in the summary of my report.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Bob. Does anyone have any questions for Bob or comments on the actual versus budget review?
It's fairly comprehensive.
Yes. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
So what we'll need to do, I'd like to have a motion to approve the June 2020 financial statements.
Motion for Menzo?
Second.
I'll second.
So we got Steve seconded. Kelly,
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums, Mr. C- Mr. Trout,
Yes.
Mrs. Policelli,
Yes.
Mr. Keim, and Mr. Shipley absent, motion carried.
Okay. The next item is a review of the RLF report. What it is, it's really a good review of the recent semi-annual report on the revolving loan fund. Sarah's going to go and review that to ensure the board has a full understanding of the RLF program and our current status. So Sarah?
Thanks, Steve. So as Steve mentioned, this is a report that we have to do twice a year on our revolving loan fund program. And just wanted to share it with you all to give you a better idea of, what our total funding for that program is, how much is currently loaned out, how much we're obligated to be loaning out per federal guidelines. So just to kind of, start going through, you can see that our initial funding from EDA was $540,000 with a local match of $260,000, bringing our total initial funding to $800,000. And then combined with interest and other income that we've received from applications and things, our total RLF capital is about $1.14 million. So right now we have about $658,000 that is currently available for lending. Per EDA regulations, we are supposed to have no more than 36% cash on hand. And if we have more than 50% cash on hand, we risk losing part of our revolving loan fund. So obviously this is something that we need to be aware of, and we need to, do more to promote and get additional loan applications in so that we can fall back into that compliance threshold. On the second page, you'll see that we have $900,000 worth of active loans and about 1.65 million in fully repaid loans. And then you can see on the very last page, there's a schedule there that shows our portfolio of the companies that are active loans and previous loan recipients. And that's about all I have. I don't want to make this too long, but I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has any.
This is Valerie. I have a question. I see it appears that nothing has been spent on administrative expenses, if I am reading this right. And I'm wondering who pays for the closing document, the preparation of the closing documents and such. And does the IDA get any funding for administering the program?
So we have an application fee for the program. Companies pay $250 for an application, and then we also take a 1% loan contingency fee.
Does that generally cover the expenses?
Kelly would know that better than I would.
The only expenses that we usually have out of the RLF are for the single audit. And then if we use any consultants to modify our management plan, which we did, I think, last year, but we usually don't have any expenses that we use the RLF fund for.
So there are no attorney expenses involved with this RLF loan in the preparation of the documents?
No, because we used to use Larry Ledgerwood from Community to do the underwriting and all that, to do the credit analysis. And now I think Jim Bedore is going to take that role over. So there
Yes.
really isn't any expense because they're part of the loan committee.
Oh, good. I would have expected some attorney's fees involved in there somewhere, but good that there's not.
That's correct.
What's the, this Menzo, what, is there a time frame for the cure on the lending to bring the lending up to the number so that we got less than 50% in cash?
We're not sure. So at this point, the report was submitted end of July, which is the first time that we've been over. It's within a period of 24 months. So if you have 24 months where you're, above 50%. So I expect, that we may hear from EDA with more guidance if they're going to enforce that. But obviously, we want to do whatever we can in the meantime to get back to that threshold.
And how long have we been out of compliance?
So you can see the cash percentage over time is 29 months. So that is how long we have been operating with 57% cash on hand.
Gotcha. These are the funds. One last question. And these are the funds from whence the, if we did the emergency lending program, this is where it would come from?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? I think my only sort of comment on this, I've been on the IDA board for 10 years and, somewhat surprised there's only been 4 loans over the last 10 years. So it's something that I think we need to do a little bit better job of either trying to get it out or advertising. Not sure why there was only 4 over 10 years.
Do we team, this is Menzo again, do we team up with the commercial banks and see if we can tag team and say, you do 50%, we'll do the other 50% or whatever? It's not something, we're not a big commercial lender, never probably will be, but it seems to me that may be I don't understand why that isn't, that should be fairly easy. I realize we're taking a little bit of the loan from the volume of the commercial bank, but this is nothing compared to the large commercial banks we have in our area. Why isn't there some kind of team play there?
I think that's a great idea, and certainly something we can look at doing. And obviously, our RLF program is designed to be sort of a gap filler when it comes to that commercial lending. So, companies that need some additional liquidity. So I certainly think that's something that we can look to do. And obviously, I don't want to get ahead on the agenda, but, if everybody agrees to the modifications for RLF program, we can really do a lot of marketing around the expansion of that program to allow for some emergency type loans.
Well, I guess.
Well, there's no
I guess that's a good segue into the next topic then. So of course, as we discussed last month, that New York State passed a law allowing the IDAs to grant emergency loans to businesses negatively impacted by the COVID-19. Based on the discussion last month, Sarah has proposed some temporary modifications to the current RLF program to address a number of concerns identified by the board. And so, Sarah, if you could go and review those proposed temporary modifications.
Sure. And I just want to make clear that with these modifications to the RLF, we would not have to abide by the state's new law because this is our existing program. So it would not be a new loan program, and we don't have to deal with the state reporting on that side of things. So the first page that you see, there's just a few modifications to our existing RLF program, and these were created using guidance from EDA, and figuring out what they would allow us to temporarily modify. So we are proposing a modification to the loan size to allow for no minimum loan amount on loans awarded between August 2020 and May 6th, 2021. So that would allow us to do smaller dollar emergency loans for small businesses. There's a proposed modification to the interest rates. So the proposed modification is to give the IDA the ability to waive the minimum interest rate and to offer loans at 0% interest until May 6th, 2021, at which point the interest rate for those loans will be set at the minimum rate as it is outlined in our RLF plan. So that isn't to say that we can't charge interest on the loans that we receive, but it gives us the flexibility to do no interest, specifically keeping the businesses that have been negatively impacted by COVID in mind. There's a proposed modification to our fee. So in terms of the loan application and also to the 1% loan commitment fee. So the proposed modification is that loans that are $25,000 or less awarded between August 2020 and May 6th, 2021 would be $10 application fee as opposed to $250. And those small loans will not be charged a loan commitment fee. There's also a proposed modification to the private sector leveraged. So there are requirements for how much our total RLF loan portfolio is allowed to have as far as our money versus private money. So the modification would be that loans awarded between, again, August 2020 and May 6th, 2021 do not have to meet that private investment threshold of $2 for each $1 of RLF loans dispersed. And then the final proposed modification is in regards to credit. So currently, loan applicants have to, like I said, they have to receive a certain amount of private investment for every dollar they receive from us, or they have to provide documentation that they have no access to financing otherwise. So this would give the IDA the ability to waive the requirement that they leverage additional capital and or provide evidence demonstrating that credit is not otherwise available. But in order to waive these requirements, we would ask them to demonstrate that their business has been negatively impacted by COVID-19. Are there any questions in regards to the modifications?
So Sarah, then, from this, once May 6th, 2021 rolls around, and another 9 months, whatever it is, then we would no longer be accepting the less than 25,000 under the program, and that the current loans, the emergency loans that were essentially granted during this period would essentially convert into more of a standard loan in terms of payments and interest.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the criteria for saying that they qualify versus for the loan? Is it just the 25,000 or under? Like how do you measure the impact of COVID?
So the one for the impact of COVID is to basically waive the private investment. So we would seek, and we already do ask for, their financials for a year, their tax returns. So you compare, what their cash position and how they're doing prior to the beginning of this year essentially. So looking at 2019 to
Last year's
2020.
financials, and then this year's 6 months, and then just see that they're in need. Like,
Yeah.
you're just going to, so it'll be on an individual basis essentially.
Right.
Yeah,
In each loan goes through the board for approval, or that
yeah.
still is.
So the way the revolving loan fund program works, it wouldn't really change anything. We still have our loan committee, which is made up of mostly non-IDA board members that would review it. Like Kelly mentioned, Jim Vidor from Community Bank is a member of that loan committee, and he's agreed to do the credit analyses and loan underwriting for all RLF loans, including these potential new ones. And then the loan committee would essentially recommend the applications to the IDA board for approval or not.
Is there still a maximum number of these 25,000 or less loans we're doing? Like, is it 100,000, or is there no concern about that?
It's left open-ended, primarily because they're still technically RLF loans, and obviously we're well above what we're supposed to have as far as cash on hand. There are limits to what % of our revolving loan fund can be awarded as working capital, which we would anticipate many of these emergency type loans being used for working capital and not equipment investments or expansions. And I believe that threshold is 50%. Yes, so a maximum of 50% of our revolving loan fund can be used for working capital loans.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comment on this? If not, then I'd like to move ahead and ask for a motion to approve the RLF management plan modifications.
I would make the motion to approve the modifications.
I'll second it, Steve.
Made the motion and Steve seconded. So Kelly?
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mr. Trout,
Yes.
Mrs. Policelli,
Yes.
Mr. Keim, and Mr. Shipley absent, motion carried.
Are we gonna do a press release about this, the availability and what we're doing?
Yeah, so what we'll do now is I will reach back out to EDA to let them know that we made the motion to formally approve the modifications, and just make sure that we have everything aligned with them as far as paperwork and whatever documentation they need to prove that. And then we will revisit our application and make sure that the information that is in there is updated to reflect these temporary changes. And once we have our application set, and once we make sure that that is in compliance with the modifications we've made, we will do press release. We'll obviously, Jeff's not on, but we'll be looking to him and some of the local banks to reach out to their networks and people that they know of who might benefit from these, and do word of mouth in combination with press.
Great.
Well, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sarah, would they have to go through the same process with the lawyer documentation and all that stuff than as the normal type loans that we do, or is there any kind of break they'll get? Because the lawyer fees and stuff on some of the IDA loans, and I'm going back to what Steve had mentioned earlier, we've only done a few, I think you said 4, Steve, since in the last 10 years. I think a lot with the lower interest rates at banks and the high cost of the lawyer fees in these IDA loans may have a lot to do with what our issue is. I don't know if there's some time or some way we should look at the fees that are attached to from the lawyers, and so much of this stuff is boilerplate stuff now for them. They've done them over the years. That's a deterrent on getting these loans out. Or am I off base on thinking that way? I'm curious of what everybody else has to say about that.
I think that's certainly a possible deterrent and something that would be good to, get more feedback on the businesses that we've done the loans for and the ones that haven't. I also think that our program isn't very widely understood and is under publicized, which is obviously an issue. But certainly, if the legal fees that the businesses incur as a result of applying for these loans are an issue, then that's something that we want to visit and see what we can do to make those kind of as standard as possible and keep the fees minimal.
Well, with the reporting that you have to do on our loans, as a company, there's work and administrative tasks to that. If you have to tack on the high cost of the lawyer fees on the documentation too, becomes a big deterrent, and it almost is not worth it. I mean, when interest rates were 8-9%, years ago, then it made sense. But as interest rates have come down, and I guess I'd refer to Menzo. Do you agree, Menzo, that that's possibly a huge deterrent on why we've had struggles? Maybe there's ways we got to look at cutting the cost for some of these too, through some of the lawyer fees and stuff that are baked into this thing.
Right. First off, there's very little information out there on what this program is. Second, there's a disincentive for many banks to be a part of it because you're taking from Peter to pay Paul.
Sure.
So they see that being a problem. We're just not in the business. If I knew more about it, perhaps we could point some of our would-be customers to that, as we don't really relish the fact of doing a lot of commercial business. We do a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
The emergency fund is going to be very difficult. And I don't have, we're going to do it, sure, but the next round of whatever the SBA dance is coming up, and that's just a mighty giveaway. So that's going to be difficult to compete with.
Right.
And a lot of businesses, loan amounts under 150 grand, and if they get their act together, it's going to be very simple and it's going to be forgiven. And it's hard to be, forgiven.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
But the regular loan, frankly, Steve, the process is onerous, miserable. It's bad enough dealing with us banks, but it seems more difficult with the IDA, and it should be just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in the throes of it. And as I said, maybe there's some way we can do a better partnership with banks. We would look at it. It may be a good supplement. I don't know. I just don't know enough about it, but I'm more than willing to be a part of that solution as we go forward. I just don't know who qualifies, and reading through that. If I'm a business, a small business particularly, I just don't think I'm going to do all that work when I can go get a credit card for the same amount, or I can get a line of credit through Lions even and make it easy, Just stay. Yep. Good luck.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Menzo. I mean, one of the benefits of the way the modifications are worded is that if there was a business that needed a loan greater than $25,000, our maximum loan is $250,000, so they could apply for a greater amount, and the loan committee could decide that it might be appropriate to have that loan be interest-free as well. So there are some flexibility there as far as loan amounts. But again, we don't know truly how popular or unpopular this kind of program might be until we really push it out there and try. We have heard from some people that have expressed interest, but it's just difficult to quantify at this point.
Okay, great stuff.
The next item is, again, y'all know we went and approved an inducement resolution for Danarin last board meeting. And being the lead agency, we need to go review and approve the seeker determination. So Pat, I think you're going to be running us through that.
Yes. Before we start that, did we do the roll call for the plan modification?
No,
Okay, so we had the motion to approve in a second.
And
So
we
I
did
guess
the roll
yeah, we
call. We
just
did
need the roll call.
We did, okay, we're all
We
set.
did the roll call.
Okay.
The secret determination for the Danarin Dental project. Danarin completed the part 1 project information of the short environmental assessment form, the EAS, which was included in your packet. And staff has completed part 2 of the EAS with recommendations, and I will go through the 11 items that you will be considering today before you make your determination of any adverse environmental impacts. So it's on page 1 of part 2. The first question is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Staff is recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 2, will the proposed action result in a change in use of intensity of the use of land? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 5, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy or it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Staff is recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 7, will the proposed action impact existing A, public-private water supplies, or B, public-private wastewater treatment supplies? In both cases, staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 8, will proposed action impair the character of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. Number 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? Staff's recommending no, small impact may occur. Number 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, drainage, or drainage problems? Staff's recommending no or small impact may occur. And number 11, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And again, staff recommended no or small impact may occur. That takes us then to part 3 of the short environmental assessment form. And near the bottom, we have checked the box that based on the determination and analysis and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. So based on your assessment of this information, we'll need a motion stating that the proposed action for the Danarin project will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts.
I'll make that motion. This is Erica.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second. Don.
Dan?
Yeah, I guess I just have one question. I think Mark Pittifer's on here representing Danarin.
That is correct.
Yes.
The only question I have is on the, the part 1 project information number 9. That, does the proposed action meet or exceed state energy code requirements? I guess just a little surprised that it doesn't meet state energy code requirements.
That question is, it always brings up more questions. In this case, it meets, but it does not exceed. But the way the blocks are, you can't do yes and no. So it does, however, it does not exceed.
It does meet the energy code requirements.
But it does not exceed. So you could actually vote. We could make a notation of that in block 9. Okay.
I'd just be, surprised it would be probably granted a, building permit without meeting the codes.
Yes.
So, yeah, technicality.
Yeah.
This is Valerie. I have a question on the first page of the EAF. Question number 2, does the proposed action require a permit, approval, or funding from any other government agency? So that any other than the IDA, I can't believe there aren't some permits needed for this.
The only permit needed was a building permit from the town. It did not need a site review by the federal.
So the fact that, doesn't that mean that you should check yes on that?
Well, building permits have never been considered to be part of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That was my only comment. So unless anyone else has any other comments or questions, if you want to proceed to the roll call.
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Wadham,
Yes.
Mr. Kraut,
Yes.
Mrs. Policelli,
Yes.
Mr. Keim, and Mr. Shipley absent, motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is the approval for the IDA resolution for the Danarin project. See that, I think Sarah, if you could review the cost benefit analysis.
Sure. All right, so cost benefit analysis, which we did prior to our public hearing. Let me pull up the amount here. So we're doing a little tweaking with our cost benefit analysis system, and the way that it calculates, the total property exemptions is a little bit tricky because obviously this parcel is already under a pilot for Bonadent, and the pilot that we're looking at is just an additional pilot specific for the Danarin expansion. So the numbers aren't 100%, but the ratio that it gave us benefit to cost was 34:1 for this project. you know, we've got our property tax exemption, which is the piece that our cost benefit analysis wasn't accurately calculated, like I said, due to the fact that the rest of the property, the current pilot, the exemption for this addition is $187,350. We have estimated sales tax exemption of $292 and a mortgage recording tax exemption of $22,500, bringing the total exemption value to $501,850. And again, that's for the proposed 10-year schedule with 100% exemption for the first 5 years and then graduated payments over the next 5. So Mark Pittifer is on the line from Bonadent and Danarin, and we'd like to offer him the opportunity to speak a little bit more to the project from their perspective and answer any questions that you may all have for him.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Danarin, as you know, is the sister lab of Bonadent Dental Laboratories. There's actually a Danarin section within our own building right now. But Danarin has positioned itself within the dental lab industry as a cost-effective option for dentists looking for low-cost restorations. So Danarin competes directly with laboratories in China, India, and Mexico, along with United States laboratories who outsource their work to those countries. And at this point in time, we've outgrown our manufacturing space. So in order to continue to maintain a competitive advantage within the marketplace and to grow, we need additional manufacturing space. So with adequate space to operate, Danarin will be able to not only retain the 36 current employees, but also grow to add a projected 35 jobs over the next 5 years in both executive and manufacturing positions. And that'll have a median salary of $55,000. We've received letters of support from federal, state, and local elected officials encouraging the success of this project. And we're very excited for another opportunity to create sustainable jobs, provide living wages and benefits, and to showcase to the country that we make beautiful restorations affordable. After 70 years and now in its 4th generation, our team at Bonadent and Danarin are committed to continuing the positive growth here in Seneca County and greatly appreciate all that the IDA has done for us in the past. We're asking for your approval today and providing financial assistance for this project through sales and use tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption, as well as an amendment to the current pilot agreement between the Seneca County IDA and Bruce Henry Properties LLC DBA as Bonadent to include the 13,650 square foot addition, as Sarah has mentioned. So by approving this, Seneca County will gain a large increase in tax revenue, jobs will be created, sustainable jobs and living wages, and we will continue to showcase what it means to work with the best. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have for me.
I guess the only question I have, Mark, is just in terms of schedule, when would you plan to sort of break ground and when would this be complete?
I know that the goal is a 6-month timeline. So that would be the goal upon approval.
Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any more questions either for Mark or to the staff on this project? If not, I'd like to move ahead with a motion to approve the resolution, final resolution for benefits for Danarin.
Motion to approve, Ms. Menzel?
Second.
Kelly, roll call.
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mr. Trout,
Yes.
Mrs. Politelli,
Yes.
Mr. Keim, and Mr. Shipley absent, motion carried.
Now, the next one is just an update on one of our favorite topics. The 414 sewer line, which I believe was put in close to 20 years ago or something. So if we can have an update on that.
Yeah, 2004 is when it was put in. So just an update for you all. We received the manhole inspection report back from Hunt Engineers. They identify some issues with the sewer line. They identified sort of immediate term improvements that would be needed, which they estimate the cost to repair being about $42,000. And then they identified some items that would need upgrades or improvements over the next 5 to 10 years. And that was just over $100,000. So we have submitted the report to the County Board of Supervisors to get some more information from them on what they would be needing from the IDA in order to transfer the sewer line. The county attorney has reached out to us asking for some documentation from when the line was first put in, but we're working with them to figure out a solution and a way forward.
So at this
And Mitch is
point,
on the line. I don't know if he has anything to add, but you know, we don't
know.
have much actionable for you right now.
Yeah, I don't know if Don has any input on this before we move on.
I don't have any input. I know that there was a meeting scheduled for, I believe, this Friday for everybody to get together with their attorneys from the townships, and it just seems like every time they get together, nothing really gets resolved. And, you know, with what Hunt Engineers came up with as far as the report and some of the disrepairs that are from hydrogen sulfide, I think that that's going to be another contentious issue as far as who's going to fix that and what they're going to do about it. I got the same problem in the town of Waterloo with a big chunk of my sewer, and when the hydrogen sulfide starts eating the concrete, it does cause a lot of havoc. And I know that they're probably going to want to resolve that. Not much was discussed about it at the last board meeting. It was brought up, but I'm not sure how many supervisors actually looked at that report other than myself. So we'll know more after Friday, hopefully, and hopefully they get something accomplished at that meeting and they move forward, you know. That's all I got.
Do you have, move on to your other item. Do you have any other updates from the Board of Supervisors to share?
Not too much as far as updates go directly to the IDA. I mean, the most contentious issue right now is the most recent executive order about the fines that they're want to place on businesses and the patrons that might be there without wearing a mask. The board itself has got some people, including myself, there's about 4 of us that aren't wearing masks when we can socially distance. And that's in that executive order that when you can't socially distance, please put your mask on. And, you know, it's turning into wear your mask at all times, no matter what, either that we're going to give you a fine. And there's a lot of contention about that. And people need to be safe when they're in confined spaces, but when you can socially distance, you shouldn't have to wear your mask because that's the way the executive order is written. And I see even today now in New York City, they're pulling over random people and going to give them $10,000 fine. So I don't know, it's just kind of a runaway train right now as far as the executive orders go. It seems like there's a new one every day, and you know, businesses are very confused in Seneca County as to what actually is going on. And it really got out of hand with the chicken wing thing that the governor said chicken wings weren't food. And at that point, everybody's just kind of like, you know, they no longer really want to respect any of the rules. And I don't blame them. But, you know, Tom Murray did come to the most recent board meeting, and he was in support of the fine situation in order to get businesses to be compliant with the mask order, and he thought that was the best way to go. And you know, I would say we probably had 2-hour discussion just on that at our last board meeting, and nobody's really in agreement. And I suggested several times to take a vote because Vicky needs people to go out and enforce this new rule. And like I said, I suggested we all vote on whether or not we were going to give her more support as far as staff goes to get out there and enforce it. And that just led to a lot more arguing amongst the board. So not a lot of decisions got made there. The chairman, at his own discretion, can make a committee without board approval. And I'm not sure whether or not he's created a committee about this enforcement of the mask. So it's kind of all in limbo. And I suggested to, you know, start making our own rules for Seneca County, follow the best guidelines as far as safety is concerned. And, you know, at some point, somebody's going to have to start ignoring the governor's executive orders, because it's almost like he rolls out of bed and just makes something up, and then that's how it is that day. So I'm not in big favor of what he's been up to as far as these go, but there are some board members that are very concerned and want masks worn, and other ones want to maintain social distancing and kind of pursue that route with more common sense. But as far as the board's concerned, I think that's a big part for the IDA to know what's going on, you know, as far as that goes. Other than that,
if I could just give you some perspective, I mean, we see a lot of people, and out here, they're not having issues wearing masks, and our staff is not having issues wearing masks. We're and as far as the food thing goes, like it was really blown out of proportion as far as wineries go. We already do give out crackers, and crackers fell under the appropriate food or whatever. So just like from our perspective, it's someone who sees a ton of people in the county. It's been pretty smooth sailing as far as that goes. We haven't had, I would say that since we've been open, we've only had less than 5 people who've had a big problem with it. And then they just can't come inside, and they can't stay. But aside from that, for the overwhelming majority of people are following the rules, and we're fine. We're doing okay with it. So there's just a different perspective, I guess, because we do see a lot of people, just so you know.
but a lot of people are wearing their masks, right?
Everyone. Yeah, it's you have to wear a mask here unless you're seated doing a tasting, and even outside when they're walking from building to building, everyone is wearing masks if they're standing up and walking around. So we have had no issues. Generally, I can think of one person who called me a communist and said that, you know, that I was enforcing these rules. But aside from that one gentleman, everyone else has had a fine time. So it's been okay over here.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point. Like we were on the phone with Vinny Esposito, our contact that's in direct contact with the governor, and he's like, we did a great job flattening the curve, and it seems like everybody's on board with it. And then, you know, I asked him, I go, if everybody's on board with it and we're doing such a good job, why do you keep coming out with more fines and other executive orders? I mean, for the most part, everybody seemed to be following it. So, you know, that's kind of the board's position now. It's just one executive order after another, and it's just, I think that people were following it, and for the most part, and you know, more restrictions are, you know, driving a certain group of people crazy in the county. And I get to deal with that backlash as a town supervisor. You know, they call me, they get in contact with me, and they're more concerned about personal freedom at this point than they are about masks and the COVID virus. So there is a big element to the population that is concerned about that, you know, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be an end in sight to it. And I have to agree with them, you know, right now. But I think that for the most part, you know, Seneca County was the last county to get it. And if it wasn't for nursing home debacles, I don't know how bad it would have ever been here, to be perfectly honest. Because that's where majority of our cases did come from. So I think that Seneca County, all in all, is handling it very well. And Tom made that point as well, that Seneca County is handling it very well. And, you know, if you don't, as a business owner, I have several businesses. Put your mask on. Pretty much everybody puts their mask on. You know, there's not a lot of people trying to make a big point out of it, but you know, when you keep getting more and more executive orders, that's what seems to be ticking people off the most right now. And we never made a decision on whether or not we were going to provide Vicky with more staff in order to go out and enforce. So I don't know what the update is on that right now. That'll be interesting.
Well, thank you, Don.
Yep, I actually got to go. So I'll talk to you guys next time.
So, yeah, we're still maintaining our quorum. Any other business? If not, then I request a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation.
Valerie, so moved.
Steve, second.
Kelly, roll.
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Polocelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mr. Kine, Mr. Shipley, and Mr. Trout absent, motion carried.
So we're out of executive session. During the executive session, the IDA board reviewed the bids and proposals that we asked for the hillside property. And what I'd like is, can I have a motion to approve the sale of the hillside property to Earl Martin per his application and bid for the $65,000. Along with that, naming the IDA as lead agency for seeker, and also approval to send the 90-day notice of sale to the state.
This is Valerie, so moved.
Steve Wadums, second.
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Polocelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mr. Kime, Mr. Shipley, and Mr. Trout absent, motion carried.
Okay. Any other last second business? If not, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second, Steve?
Yeah, so Menzo and Steve. Kelly?
Ms. Bassett,
Yes.
Mr. Brusso,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Polocelli,
Yes.
Mr. Wadums,
Yes.
Mr. Kime, Mr. Shipley, Mr. Trout absent, motion carried.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And it looks like most likely we'll have our next meeting in September being another virtual meeting. So, okay, thank you.